The dust had barely settled from the stampede when Eliza Montgomery realized the herd she had been tracking for 3 days belonged to someone else, and that someone was going to be mighty grateful or mighty suspicious when he found out a woman had done what his own ranch hands could not. The Arizona Territory stretched endless and unforgiving in every direction, the summer of 1883 baking the Red Canyon walls until they shimmered like mirages in the afternoon heat. Eliza had been searching for her father's missing mare when she stumbled upon the tracks, dozens of them, leading deep into the narrow passages of Cedar Canyon where most folks were too smart or too scared to venture. The Apache had used these canyons for centuries, and while the wars had officially ended, tension still crackled through the territory like summer lightning. She wiped the sweat from her brow with the back of her hand, her cotton shirt clinging to her skin beneath the leather vest she wore. At 22 years old, Eliza had spent more time in the saddle than most men twice her age. Her father, Thomas Montgomery, had raised her alone after her mother died of fever when Eliza was barely 6 years old. He had taught her to rope, to ride, to read the land like a book written in stone and sky. But he had grown frail in recent years, and the small ranch they operated 15 miles outside of Prescott was barely holding on. The cattle were Herefords, she could tell by their distinctive red bodies and white faces, and they were valuable stock. She counted 23 head, all looking worse for wear after what must have been days wandering through the rocky terrain. Some had cuts on their legs from the sharp stones. Others were so thirsty their tongues hung thick and swollen from their mouths. A younger steer had gotten itself wedged between two boulders, its desperate lowing echoing off the canyon walls. Eliza dismounted from her buckskin gelding, a reliable animal named Dusty, who had been her companion for 5 years. She approached the trapped steer slowly, speaking in low, soothing tones that her father had taught her. The animal rolled its eyes in panic, but she kept her movement steady and calm. It took her the better part of an hour to shift enough rocks to widen the gap, her hands bleeding by the time she finally coaxed the steer free. It stumbled away on shaky legs, but it was alive. She knew she should leave the cattle where they were and ride back to find their owner, but the practical part of her mind recognized that these animals would not survive another night in the canyon without water. There was a creek about 2 miles northeast, and if she could get them moving in the right direction, she might save the entire herd. The work was backbreaking. Eliza rode around the scattered cattle, whistling and calling, using every trick she knew to gather them into a cohesive group. Dusty responded to her commands perfectly, cutting off stragglers and pushing them back toward the main body. The sun climbed higher, then began its descent toward the western rim of the canyon. Her canteen was nearly empty. Her lips cracked and dry, but she kept working. By the time she heard hoofbeats approaching, she had successfully moved the herd within a 1/4 mile of the creek. Eliza turned in her saddle to see 3 riders emerging from the southern passage, and even from a distance she could tell they were moving fast. She straightened her spine, one hand moving instinctively to rest near the rifle secured to her saddle, then forced herself to relax. If these were the owners, she had nothing to fear. The lead rider pulled up sharp when he spotted her, his horse kicking up a cloud of red dust. He was tall in the saddle, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark hat pulled low against the sun. Even with his features shadowed, Eliza could feel the intensity of his gaze assessing her. The cattle, the entire situation with the quick calculation of a man used to making split-second decisions. "Those are my cattle," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the distance between them. It was not an accusation, simply a statement of fact. "I figured they belonged to someone," Eliza replied, keeping her tone even. "Found them scattered throughout the canyon. One was trapped between rocks. They were in bad shape, so I started moving them toward water." The rider nudged his horse closer, and Eliza got her first clear look at him. He was younger than she had initially thought, probably not much past 30, with dark hair that curled slightly where it touched his collar, and eyes the color of weathered denim. His face was tanned and angular, with the kind of strong features that would have made him handsome if not for the exhaustion etched around his eyes and mouth. He looked like a man who had not slept in days. "You did this alone?" he asked, and now there was something new in his voice. Surprise, maybe. Respect. "My horse helped," Eliza said, patting Dusty's neck. "He is better at herding than most ranch hands I have known." The two men who had been riding with him caught up, both looking equally worn and dusty. One was older, with silver streaking through his beard, the other barely out of his teens, with an eager, open face. They both stared at Eliza with undisguised astonishment. "Boss, that is all of them," the younger one said, his voice cracking slightly. "That is the whole damn herd we lost in the stampede." The man Eliza assumed was their boss dismounted in one fluid motion, walking among his cattle with the careful attention of someone who knew his stock intimately. He checked their condition, ran his hands along their flanks, examined their injuries. When he finally turned back to Eliza, something had shifted in his expression. "That was remarkable," he said, and the simple words carried more weight than any flowery praise could have. "Stay here." Eliza blinked. "Excuse me?" "Do not leave. I need to get these cattle to water and back to my ranch, but I want to talk to you. Will you wait?" He looked at her directly, and Eliza felt something strange flutter in her chest. It was not just his words, but the way he said them, with an urgency that suggested he was asking for something important. "I suppose I can spare a little time," she said, trying to sound casual despite the odd racing of her heart. "I still need to find my father's mare anyway. She wandered off 3 days ago, which is why I was out here in the first place." Something flickered across his face. 3 days? You have been tracking for 3 days? "I know this land pretty well, and my father needs that horse. We cannot afford to lose her." She heard the defensiveness in her own voice and wished she could take it back. She did not owe this stranger any explanations, but he nodded as if he understood completely. "Help us get them to the creek, then come back to my ranch with us. It will be dark soon, and these canyons are not safe after sunset. You can bed down in the bunkhouse tonight, and in the morning I will help you look for your horse. I have fresh men and horses. We will cover more ground together." The offer was practical and generous, but Eliza hesitated. She had learned to be cautious, especially around men she did not know. The Arizona territory was growing more civilized every year, but it was still a hard land that attracted hard people. The older ranch hand must have sensed her reluctance because he spoke up. "Name is Charlie Bowden, miss. I have been working for the Mackenzie Ranch for near about 15 years. The boss here is Cole Mackenzie, and despite his rough manners, he is as honest as they come. If he says you are welcome, you are welcome. And if he says he will help you find your horse, he will do it or die trying." Cole Mackenzie shot his ranch hand an exasperated look, but did not contradict him. "What Charlie said, minus the dying part. I just figure I owe you for saving my herd. 3 days of tracking on your own with limited supplies, that took courage. Let me repay the favor?" When he put it that way, refusing seemed churlish. Besides, Eliza was exhausted, hungry, and down to her last few sips of water. "All right," she agreed, "but I can handle myself. I do not need any special treatment just because I am a woman." A smile tugged at the corner of Cole's mouth, the first real expression she had seen from him beyond exhaustion and surprise. Would not dream of it. Working together, they moved the cattle to the creek. Eliza watched as Cole and his men handled the animals with practiced efficiency, checking each one for injuries, making note of which ones would need special attention. The younger ranch hand, who introduced himself as Tommy Bridges, could not stop stealing glances at her, his face reddening every time she caught him looking. "Sorry, miss," he stammered when she finally raised an eyebrow at him. "It is just we do not see many women out here, especially not ones who can handle stock like you do." "Where I come from, everyone who can ride helps with the cattle," Eliza said. "My father's place is small, but we work hard." "Montgomery Ranch?" Charlie asked. "About 15 miles north of Prescott?" "You know it?" "Know of it. Your father has a good reputation as a fair man. Heard he had a daughter, but I did not realize—" He trailed off diplomatically. "You did not realize she spent her time chasing cattle through canyons," Eliza finished for him. "Most people do not." Cole had been listening while he worked, and now he looked up at her with those intense blue eyes. "Maybe most people are not paying attention to the right things." The comment hung in the air between them, laden with a meaning Eliza could not quite parse. Before she could respond, Cole turned back to his cattle, issuing quick orders to Charlie and Tommy about the route back to the ranch. It was clear he was a natural leader, the kind of man others followed without question. The Mackenzie Ranch turned out to be one of the largest operations in the territory. As they drove the cattle across the rolling hills in the fading light, Eliza could see the sprawling compound spread out below them. A substantial ranch house built of adobe and timber dominated the center, surrounded by multiple barns, corrals, a bunkhouse, and various outbuildings. Fences marked off pastures where more cattle grazed, and she could see men moving about their evening chores. "This is quite an operation," Eliza said, unable to keep the awe from her voice. Cole glanced at her, then away. "My father built it from nothing. Started with 100 head of cattle and a lot of stubborn determination. When he died 5 years ago, he left it to me and my sister. We have been doing our best to keep it going." "Looks like you have done more than just keep it going." "We have been lucky," Cole said, but there was no pride in his voice, only a kind of wary caution, as if he was afraid that acknowledging his success might somehow jinx it. They drove the recovered cattle into one of the corrals, and immediately a handful of ranch hands came running, their faces lighting up with relief when they saw the missing herd. A woman emerged from the ranch house, tall and striking with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. She moved with the same confident grace as Cole, and Eliza knew before anyone said a word that this was his sister. "You found them," the woman said, her voice rich with relief. She reached the corral fence and counted the cattle with quick efficiency. "All of them?" "All of them," Cole confirmed. "But I cannot take credit. This is Miss Montgomery. She tracked them into Cedar Canyon and had already rounded them up by the time we arrived." The woman turned to Eliza with undisguised surprise. She was beautiful in a fierce, untamed way, probably around 25 or 26, with Cole's same blue eyes and strong features. "You did this alone?" "Yes, ma'am," Eliza said, suddenly feeling very aware of her dusty clothes and wind-blown hair. "Hannah Mackenzie," the woman said, extending her hand. When Eliza shook it, Hannah's grip was firm and calloused, the handshake of someone who did real work. "Any woman who can track and rope in Cedar Canyon is someone I want to know. Come inside. You look dead on your feet." "Cole invited me to stay the night in the bunkhouse," Eliza said. "I appreciate the offer, but I do not want to impose." Hannah waved a dismissive hand. "Nonsense. We have a guest room, and it has an actual bed and a wash basin. You will stay in the house." She looked at her brother with an expression that brooked no argument. "Tell the men to take care of her horse. Miss Montgomery is staying with us." Cole held up his hands in surrender. "I know better than to argue with you. Tommy, see that Dusty gets a good rub down and extra oats. He earned it today." Inside the ranch house, Eliza found herself in a world she had only glimpsed in her rare trips to Prescott. The main room was spacious and well-furnished, with a stone fireplace, comfortable chairs, and rugs that looked like they had been imported from back east. The walls were decorated with paintings of horses and landscapes, and shelves held books. Actual leather-bound books, more than Eliza had seen outside of a general store. Hannah showed her to a bedroom on the second floor, a space that was larger than the entire main room of the cabin Eliza shared with her father. The bed was covered with a beautiful quilt, and clean towels were stacked on a washstand. A pitcher of water and a porcelain basin sat ready for use. "Take your time getting cleaned up," Hannah said. "Supper will be ready in about an hour. I'll have some clean clothes sent up. We're about the same size, I think." "I cannot accept," Eliza started, but Hannah cut her off. "You can, and you will. You saved our herd, Miss Montgomery. That represents a significant portion of our livelihood. Clean clothes and a hot meal are the least we can offer." Her expression softened. Besides, I so rarely have another woman to talk to out here. Most of the time, it is just me, Cole, and a dozen rough ranch hands, please. I would enjoy the company. Put that way, Eliza could not refuse. After Hannah left, she poured water into the basin and washed away 3 days of dust and sweat. Her reflection in the small mirror above the washstand showed a sun-browned face with hazel eyes that her mother used to say changed color depending on her mood. Her dark blonde hair had come loose from its braid and hung in tangled waves past her shoulders. She worked out the knots patiently, then re-braided it into something presentable. The clothes Hannah sent up fit reasonably well, a simple cotton dress in deep green that was finer than anything Eliza owned. She felt strange wearing it, like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. But when she came downstairs and saw Cole's expression as he looked at her, the discomfort faded into something else entirely. He had cleaned up too, she noticed. His dark hair was still damp, slicked back from his face, and he had changed into a fresh shirt. Without the layer of dust and exhaustion, he was striking, the kind of handsome that probably made women in town stumble over their words. But it was not his looks that made Eliza's breath catch. It was the way he looked at her, like she was something rare and unexpected. "You clean up nice," he said, then immediately looked embarrassed by the casual compliment. "So do you," Eliza replied, and was rewarded with a slight flush on his cheeks. Dinner was a revelation. Hannah had prepared a roast with potatoes and carrots, fresh bread, and even a pie made from dried apples. The three of them sat at a long wooden table that could have easily accommodated a dozen people, and for the first time in days, Eliza ate until she was truly full. The conversation flowed easily. Hannah asked about Eliza's ranch, and Eliza found herself talking about her father's declining health, the struggles they faced keeping their small operation running, her mother's death so many years ago. It felt natural to talk to these two, like they were old friends rather than strangers she had met hours ago. "What made you track into Cedar Canyon?" Cole asked. "Most people avoid it." "My father needs that mare," Eliza explained. "She is the only breeding stock we have left. Without her, we cannot rebuild our herd. And besides, I know those canyons pretty well. My mother's people used to camp there in the summers." She saw the question in their eyes and added, "My mother was half Apache. Her mother was from one of the bands that used to live in these parts before the relocations." There was a moment of silence, and Eliza braced herself for the reaction. Prejudice ran deep in the territory, and many settlers still viewed anyone with Apache blood as the enemy. But Hannah just nodded thoughtfully. "That explains why you moved through the canyon so confidently," she said, "and why you were able to track and gather those cattle so effectively. You were taught well." The acceptance in her voice made something tight in Eliza's chest loosen. "My mother died before she could teach me much, but my father made sure I knew her stories. And some of her people still live nearby. They taught me what they could." Cole leaned forward, his eyes intent. "The mare you are looking for, do you have any idea where she might have gone?" "I tracked her east into the high country before I lost the trail. She is young and skittish, could be anywhere by now." "We will find her," Cole said with quiet certainty. "First light tomorrow, we ride out. I will bring Charlie and a couple of the other men. Between all of us, we will cover enough ground." "I cannot ask you to do that," Eliza protested. "You have your own ranch to run." "You are not asking, I am offering." He held her gaze, and Eliza felt that strange flutter in her chest again. "You saved my herd, risked your own safety to help animals that were not even yours. Let me do this." Hannah watched the exchange with an expression Eliza could not quite read, something knowing and pleased playing around her mouth. "My brother is stubborn, Miss Montgomery. Once he sets his mind to something, there is no changing it. You might as well accept gracefully." "Call me Eliza," she said. "And all right, thank you. Both of you." That night, lying in the comfortable bed in the Mackenzie ranch house, Eliza stared up at the ceiling and tried to understand what she was feeling. It was not just gratitude, though. She was certainly grateful for their help. It was something more complicated, centered around the way Cole had looked at her across the dinner table, the quiet strength in his voice when he promised to help find her horse. She barely knew him, had spent only a few hours in his company, but something about him called to a part of her she had not even known existed. She told herself she was being foolish. Cole Mackenzie owned one of the largest ranches in the territory. She was the daughter of a struggling rancher, a woman with Apache blood who spent her days doing work most people considered unladylike. Whatever she thought she felt, it was probably just the exhaustion and stress of the past few days playing tricks on her mind. But when she finally drifted off to sleep, her dreams were filled with blue eyes and a deep voice saying, "That was remarkable." The eastern sky was just beginning to pale when Eliza woke to a soft knock on her bedroom door. Hannah's voice came through the wood. "Eliza, Cole is getting the horses ready. Breakfast is on the table if you're hungry." Eliza dressed quickly in her own clothes, which someone had cleaned and left folded on a chair. Downstairs she found coffee, biscuits, bacon, and eggs waiting. Cole was already eating, looking alert despite the early hour. He nodded to her as she sat down. "Charlie, Tommy, and I will ride with you," he said without preamble. "Hannah will hold down the fort here. We packed supplies for a couple of days just in case the search takes longer than expected." "I really appreciate this," Eliza said around a mouthful of biscuit. "My father will too." "How long has it been since you checked on him?" Cole asked. 3 days, you said?" Guilt washed through Eliza. "He was doing all right when I left. One of our neighbors, Mrs. Chen, has been stopping by to check on him. But yes, I have been gone longer than I planned." "We will find your horse today," Cole said with the same quiet certainty he had shown the night before, one way or another. They rode out as the sun broke over the eastern hills, painting the landscape in shades of gold and crimson. Eliza led them to where she had lost the mare's trail, and from there they split up, each taking a different direction but staying within shouting distance. The terrain grew rougher as they climbed into the high country, the air cooler and thinner, scented with pine and juniper. It was Charlie who found the first sign, hoofprints leading toward a narrow valley. They converged on the spot, and Eliza felt her heart lift as she recognized the distinctive pattern of her mare's shoes. Cole studied the tracks with the same intense focus he brought to everything. "Fresh," he said, "maybe half a day old. She's moving north." They followed the trail through a landscape of stunning beauty. Red rock formations rising like cathedrals against the brilliant blue sky. Eliza found herself riding beside Cole, their horses matching pace naturally. He pointed out landmarks, shared stories about the land, asked her questions about her life in a way that felt genuine rather than merely polite. "What do you want?" he asked at one point. "For your ranch, I mean. If you could have anything, what would it look like?" Eliza thought about the question carefully. "Security," she said finally. "Enough cattle to sustain us through bad seasons. Maybe hire a hand or two so my father does not have to work so hard. It is not much compared to what you have, but it would be enough." "It is not about comparison," Cole said. "A good life is a good life, whether it is 100 head of cattle or 1,000. And wanting security for your father, that is admirable." "What about you?" Eliza asked. "What do you want?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. "Same as you, I suppose, security. For Hannah, for the ranch. My father built this place with his bare hands, and keeping it going feels like honoring his memory. But sometimes I wonder if there should be more to life than just work and responsibility." "Like what?" He looked at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "I have not quite figured that out yet, but I am starting to get some ideas." Before Eliza could respond, Tommy called out from ahead, "Boss, I see her!" They spurred their horses forward and crested a rise to find Eliza's mare grazing peacefully in a small meadow. She was a beautiful animal, a bay with a distinctive white blaze, and she looked up at their approach with mild curiosity rather than fear. Eliza dismounted slowly, speaking in the same soothing tones she had used with the trapped steer. The mare watched her approach, ears pricked forward. When Eliza was close enough, she extended her hand and let the horse sniff her fingers. The mare whickered softly, recognition in her dark eyes. "There you are, you troublesome thing," Eliza murmured, running her hand along the mare's neck. "You led me on quite a chase." Getting a lead rope on the mare was easy after that. Eliza checked her over carefully, but aside from some minor scrapes, the horse was in good condition. Relief flooded through her so strongly it almost made her dizzy. With this mare, she and her father had a chance to rebuild. Without her, their future had been desperately uncertain. "Thank you," she said, turning to Cole. "I could not have found her without your help." "You were the one who tracked her this far," Cole pointed out. "We just helped with the final stretch, but you are welcome." They started back toward the Mackenzie ranch, the mood lighter now that their mission was successful. Charlie and Tommy rode ahead, giving Eliza and Cole space to talk. She learned that he was 29, that he had learned ranching from his father, but had also spent 2 years back east learning about modern cattle management techniques. Hannah had been married briefly to a man who turned out to be more interested in the Mackenzie fortune than in his wife, and the divorce had been messy and painful. "She is stronger than she realizes," Cole said. "The whole situation could have broken her, but instead she threw herself into running the ranch. Half the success we have had is because of her business sense." "You are lucky to have each other," Eliza said. "His family is precious." "You and your father seem close." "He is all I have, and I am all he has." She paused, then added, "That is why I cannot let the ranch fail. It is not just about the land or the cattle. It is about keeping the life we built together, keeping my mother's memory alive." "I understand that," Cole said quietly, "more than you might think." When they reached the Mackenzie ranch, Hannah came out to greet them, her face lighting up when she saw the mare. "You found her!" "Oh, Eliza, I am so glad." "Thanks to your brother and his men," Eliza said, "I owe all of you a debt." "You owe us nothing," Hannah said firmly, "but you will stay for supper at least. It is too late to start back to your ranch today, and your father is not expecting you at any particular time, correct?" It was true that Thomas Montgomery was used to Eliza's absences when she was tracking or working the range, and the thought of spending another evening in the company of the Mackenzies was more appealing than Eliza wanted to admit. "If you are sure I am not imposing," she said. "Positive," Hannah assured her. "In fact, I insist. Cole, show Eliza where to stable her horses. I will get supper started." That second evening at the Mackenzie ranch passed even more pleasantly than the first. After the meal, they sat in the main room, and Hannah brought out a bottle of whiskey. They talked late into the night, sharing stories and laughter. Eliza learned that Cole played guitar, though he was too shy to demonstrate. Hannah had a sharp wit and a talent for mimicry that had them all laughing until tears ran down their faces. It was well past midnight when they finally called it a night. As Eliza climbed the stairs to the guest room, she felt Cole's eyes on her. When she turned at the landing, he was still watching, his expression unreadable in the lamplight. "Good night, Eliza," he said softly. "Good night, Cole." In her room, she pressed her hands to her flushed cheeks and tried to calm her racing heart. This was dangerous territory. She had known this man for barely 2 days, and already she was feeling things she had no business feeling. Tomorrow, she would ride home, return to her life and her responsibilities, and probably never see Cole Mackenzie again. The thought made her chest ache in a way that should have been impossible for someone she barely knew. The next morning dawned clear and cool. Eliza dressed in her own clothes and headed downstairs to find Cole already waiting, 2 horses saddled and ready. "I will ride part of the way with you," he said. "Make sure you get home safe." "That is not necessary," Eliza protested, but her heart leaped at the prospect of a few more hours in his company. "Maybe not necessary, but I want to." He held her gaze. "Unless you would rather I did not?" "No," Eliza admitted. "I would welcome the company." Hannah hugged her goodbye and made her promise to visit again soon. "I mean it," she said. "It has been wonderful having another woman around. Do not be a stranger." They rode out in comfortable silence, the morning sun warming their backs. The mare followed docilely on her lead rope, apparently content to be heading home. Eliza kept stealing glances at Cole, memorizing the line of his jaw, the way he sat his horse with such natural grace, the concentration on his face as he scanned the horizon. "Can I ask you something?" Cole said after they had been riding for about an hour. "Of course." "Why have you not married?" "I do not mean that as an insult," he added quickly. "I'm just surprised someone like you is not already spoken for." Eliza felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Someone like me? Strong, capable, beautiful." He said it matter-of-factly, like he was listing the qualities of a good horse. "Seems like men would be lined up." "Most men do not appreciate a woman who can rope better than they can," Eliza said wryly, "and the ones who might overlook that are usually put off by my mother's heritage. The few who have shown interest, well, they wanted a wife who would stay home and keep house. That is not who I am." Cole nodded slowly. "Their loss." "What about you? Why has not some woman snapped you up by now?" "The ranch keeps me busy," he said, but there was something evasive in his tone. "And I suppose I have not met the right person. My father used to say that when you meet the right one, you will know. It will feel different from anything else." "Do you believe that?" Cole looked at her, his blue eyes serious and searching. "I am starting to." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Eliza's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he must be able to hear it. Before she could figure out how to respond, Cole spoke again. "I want to see you again," he said. "Not just by chance. I want to court you properly if you will let me." Eliza stared at him, sure she must have misheard. "Court me? Cole? We barely know each other." "Then let us get to know each other. I will come calling at your ranch, take you to the socials in Prescott, whatever is proper and respectable. I just know that I do not want to say goodbye today and have that be the end of it." He paused, vulnerability flickering across his strong features. "Unless you do not feel the same way, in which case I apologize for presuming." "I do feel the same way," Eliza blurted out before she could second-guess herself. "I have been feeling it since that first moment in the canyon, and it terrifies me because it is too fast, too much. But yes, I would like to see you again." The smile that broke across Cole's face was like sunrise, brilliant and warming. "Then I will come calling this Sunday. That gives me a few days to make sure everything at the ranch is running smoothly so I can take some time away." They rode the rest of the way to the Montgomery ranch in a state of euphoric nervousness. Eliza pointed out landmarks, telling him stories about the land and her childhood. Cole listened with genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at the funny parts, his whole attention focused on her in a way that made her feel seen and valued. The Montgomery ranch was small compared to the Mackenzie spread, just a modest cabin, a barn that had seen better days, and a few fenced pastures. But it was home, and Eliza felt a surge of fierce love for it as they rode up to the cabin. Thomas Montgomery emerged from the barn, leaning heavily on a walking stick. He was a tall man, though age and illness had stooped his shoulders. His hair was completely white, his face deeply lined, but his eyes were still sharp and clear. Those eyes widened when he saw Eliza, then narrowed with suspicion when he spotted Cole. "Eliza, thank the Lord," he said, his voice rough with relief. "I was starting to worry. And who is this?" "This is Cole Mackenzie, Pa. From the big ranch south of here. I found his lost cattle in Cedar Canyon, and he helped me track down our mare." She dismounted and led the mare forward. "See? I got her back safe and sound." Thomas's expression softened as he looked at the horse, running a gnarled hand along her neck. "Good work, daughter. I knew you would find her if anyone could." He turned his attention to Cole, who had also dismounted. "Mackenzie, you said? I have heard of your spread. Big operation." "Yes, sir," Cole said respectfully. "Your daughter saved my herd. I owe her a significant debt." "Seems to me she was just doing what any decent person would do," Thomas said, but there was pride in his voice. "But I appreciate you helping her track our mare. That was kind of you." "It was my pleasure, sir." Cole hesitated, then added, "I would like your permission to come calling on Eliza, to court her properly with your blessing." Thomas's eyebrows shot up, and he looked from Cole to Eliza and back again. That is direct. I appreciate a man who speaks his mind. But this is mighty sudden. You have known my daughter for what, a few days? 3 days, Cole admitted. But sometimes that is enough to know something is worth pursuing. I am not asking for anything except the chance to get to know her better, sir, with your permission and hers. Thomas studied him for a long moment, and Eliza held her breath. Her father was protective, with good reason. The Arizona Territory could be a dangerous place, and he had spent her whole life trying to keep her safe while also teaching her to be strong. Finally, Thomas nodded slowly. All right, you can come calling. But I will be watching, young man. Eliza is everything to me. You hurt her, and it will not matter how big your ranch is. Understood? Understood, sir. I have no intention of hurting her. Good. Thomas softened slightly. Now then, since you rode all this way, the least I can offer is some coffee before you head back. They went inside, and Eliza busied herself making coffee while her father and Cole talked. She listened to them discuss cattle prices, weather patterns, the best grazing land in the territory. Cole was respectful without being obsequious, and her father gradually warmed to him. By the time Cole finished his coffee and prepared to leave, Thomas was almost friendly. Sunday, then, Cole said to Eliza as she walked him out to his horse. I will be here mid-morning. I will be ready, Eliza promised. And Cole, thank you for everything. He reached out and took her hand, his palm warm and calloused against hers. You do not need to thank me. I should be thanking you. You saved my herd, but I think maybe you might have saved more than that. Before Eliza could ask what he meant, he was in the saddle and riding away. She watched until he disappeared over the rise, her hand still tingling where he had touched her. Behind her, Thomas cleared his throat. He seems like a good man. He does, Eliza agreed. And you like him. It was not a question, but Eliza answered anyway. Yes, Pa, I do. Thomas was quiet for a moment. Your mother and I, we knew within a week that we wanted to spend our lives together. Everyone said it was too fast, that it would not last. But we had 20 good years before the fever took her, and I have never regretted a single day. Sometimes when you know, you know. Eliza turned to look at her father, surprised. He rarely spoke about her mother. The loss still too painful, even after all these years. You really think it is possible to know that quickly? I think it is possible to know that something is worth exploring, Thomas said carefully. Whether it lasts, that depends on both of you, but he seems honest and he clearly respects you. Those are good foundations. That Sunday, Cole arrived exactly when he said he would, riding up to the cabin in clean clothes with his hair combed back. He had brought wildflowers, which he presented to Eliza with an endearing touch of nervousness. Thomas watched the whole thing with a slight smile, then shooed them out of the house. Go on, take a ride. Show him around the place. Just be back before sundown. Eliza saddled Dusty, and she and Cole rode out across the Montgomery land. It was not much compared to his ranch, but Eliza showed him everything with pride. The creek where her mother used to take her to fish, the meadow where wildflowers bloomed in the spring, the rocky overlook that gave a view of the entire valley. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. Cole told her about growing up on the ranch, about the loneliness after his father died, about his hopes for the future. Eliza shared memories of her mother, stories about learning to track and rope, her fears about keeping the ranch going as her father grew older. I could help, Cole said at one point. Not charity, he added quickly when he saw her expression. But our ranches are not that far apart. It would make sense to cooperate, share resources sometimes, and I could spare a hand or two during busy seasons. I do not want your pity, Eliza said stiffly. It is not pity. It is partnership. Ranching is hard enough without trying to do everything alone. My father succeeded because he built alliances with his neighbors. He helped them. They helped him. That is how you survive out here. Put that way, it made sense. And Eliza had to admit, even to herself, that some help would make an enormous difference. I will think about it, she said, "and talk to my father. That is all I ask." They returned to the cabin as the sun was setting, the sky painted in brilliant shades of orange and purple. Cole helped Eliza unsaddle Dusty, their movements synchronized in the easy way of people who had spent their lives around horses. When they finished, Cole turned to her, his expression serious. "I have had a wonderful day," he said. "One of the best I can remember. Can I see you again?" "I would like that," Eliza said softly. "Next Sunday? Or sooner, if you will let me." "Next Sunday is good, but Cole, this cannot just be you riding out here all the time. My father and I will come to your place sometimes too, if Hannah does not mind." "Hannah will be thrilled. She has been pestering me for details about you since I got home. I think she already considers you a friend." Cole came calling every Sunday after that, and true to her word, Eliza and Thomas visited the Mackenzie ranch as well. The courtship unfolded slowly and naturally like a flower opening to the sun. They rode together, worked cattle together, shared meals and conversations that stretched late into the night. Eliza met the Mackenzie ranch hands properly, earning their respect with her skill and work ethic. Cole spent time with Thomas, learning the older man's ranching philosophy and sharing his own knowledge. 6 weeks into their courtship, Cole helped Thomas repair the Montgomery barn roof, refusing to accept anything in return. When they were finished, Thomas pulled him aside. "You are in love with my daughter," the older man said bluntly. Cole did not bother denying it. "Yes, sir, I am. And she is in love with you, though she has not said it yet. Eliza is cautious with her heart. Her mother taught her to be careful, to choose wisely." "I am going to ask her to marry me," Cole said, "but I wanted to speak to you first. I want your blessing, sir." Thomas studied him for a long moment. "You will take care of her? Not just provide for her, but respect her strength? Let her be who she is?" "I will, I swear it." "Then you have my blessing. But be warned, if you ask her wrong, she will likely say no. Eliza does not want grand gestures. She wants honesty and partnership." "That is exactly what I want to offer her," Cole said. He proposed 2 weeks later, not with a fancy dinner or public declaration, but during a quiet moment as they rode back from checking Thomas's fences. They had stopped to water the horses, and as Eliza knelt by the stream, Cole pulled a ring from his pocket. It had been his mother's, a simple gold band with a small diamond. "Eliza," he said, and something in his voice made her turn. When she saw him kneeling behind her, ring in hand, her breath caught. "I know it has only been a couple of months," Cole said, "but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. You are the strongest, most remarkable woman I have ever met. You challenge me, inspire me, make me want to be better. I do not just want to court you. I want to marry you, build a life with you. Will you be my wife?" Eliza's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I will marry you." He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly, like it had been meant for her all along. Then he pulled her into his arms and kissed her, and Eliza felt like she was finally home. They were married 8 weeks later in a simple ceremony in Prescott. Hannah stood as Eliza's maid of honor, and Charlie as Cole's best man. Thomas walked Eliza down the aisle, tears streaming down his weathered face. The wedding was small, just family and close friends, exactly what they both wanted. The question of where they would live was solved practically. The Mackenzie ranch had plenty of room, and Thomas could not manage his place alone. He moved into the main house with them, taking a room on the first floor. Hannah was delighted to have him, and the two of them formed an immediate friendship based on mutual respect and a shared love of arguing about cattle breeding techniques. Eliza threw herself into life at the Mackenzie ranch, working alongside Cole to expand and improve the operation. Her knowledge of the land, particularly the canyon systems and high country, proved invaluable. She taught the ranch hands tracking techniques her mother's people had taught her, improving their ability to find strays and prevent losses. Cole kept his promise to respect her strength. They were true partners in every sense, making decisions together, working side by side. When some of the neighboring ranchers made comments about Cole letting his wife do man's work, he shut them down immediately. "My wife is worth any 3 men I could hire," he said flatly, "and if you have a problem with that, you can take your business elsewhere." The first year of their marriage was not without challenges. A harsh winter killed off some of their stock, and there was a tense week when a band of outlaws passed through the territory, stealing cattle and horses from several ranches. Cole and his hands tracked them down, recovering most of the stolen animals, but it was a reminder that danger was never far away in the Arizona territory. Through it all, Eliza and Cole's love deepened. They learned each other's rhythms, the small ways they could support and comfort each other. Cole learned that when Eliza was upset, she needed space to ride and think before she was ready to talk. Eliza learned that Cole carried the weight of responsibility heavily and sometimes needed to be reminded that he did not have to face everything alone. At night, in the privacy of their bedroom, they explored the physical dimension of their love with tenderness and passion. Eliza had been nervous on their wedding night, but Cole was patient and gentle, and the intimacy they shared became another way they communicated, another bond that tied them together. Hannah thrived with Eliza as a sister. The two women formed a formidable team, managing the business side of the ranch with sharp minds and careful planning. They traveled to Prescott together for supplies, attended church socials, gradually building a community of friends and allies. Thomas's health stabilized with less hard physical labor required of him. He spent his days offering advice, teaching the younger ranch hands, and playing checkers with Charlie. Eliza would often find him sitting on the porch, a contented smile on his face, and knew he was happy in a way he had not been in years. 16 months after their wedding, Eliza realized she was pregnant. She told Cole one evening as they were getting ready for bed, and his reaction was everything she could have hoped for. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing with pure joy, then set her down carefully as if she might break. "A baby," he kept saying. "We are going to have a baby." "You are going to be a wonderful father," Eliza said, cupping his face in her hands, "and you will be an amazing mother." He placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "Boy or girl, it does not matter, as long as you are both healthy." The pregnancy was not easy. Eliza suffered from terrible morning sickness for the first few months, and the Arizona summer heat made her miserable. But Cole was attentive to the point of being overprotective, and Hannah fussed over her like a mother hen. Even the ranch hands tiptoed around her, treating her like she was made of glass. "I am not fragile," Eliza protested one day after Cole tried to forbid her from riding out to check the north pasture. "I know you are not," Cole said, "but humor me. I cannot lose you, Eliza. You and this baby are everything to me." She saw the real fear in his eyes and softened. His mother had died giving birth to Hannah, though he rarely spoke of it. The fear of history repeating itself haunted him. "I am strong," she said gently, "and I am careful, but I need to keep working to feel useful. I will not do anything dangerous, I promise, but I cannot just sit around for 9 months." They compromised. Eliza continued to work, but avoided the more strenuous or dangerous tasks. She focused on the business side of the ranch, worked with the horses, and helped Hannah with planning and record keeping. Cole relaxed fractionally, though he never stopped watching her with protective concern. On a cold February night in 1885, with snow falling softly outside, Eliza went into labor. The midwife, a capable woman named Mrs. Johnson, arrived quickly. Cole paced the downstairs like a caged animal while Hannah tried to distract him. Thomas sat calmly in his chair, though his knuckles were white where he gripped the armrests. The labor was long and difficult. Eliza had always been strong, but this was a different kind of challenge. Wave after wave of pain that seemed endless. Through it all, she focused on breathing, on staying calm, on the thought of the baby she would soon hold. Just before dawn, a baby's cry split the air. Cole was halfway up the stairs before Hannah could stop him. Mrs. Johnson opened the bedroom door, smiling broadly. "You have a son, Mr. Mackenzie, a healthy boy, and your wife is tired but doing well." Cole burst into the room to find Eliza propped up against pillows, her hair damp with sweat, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked exhausted and radiant all at once, and when she smiled at him, Cole felt his heart might burst. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Cole approached carefully, almost reverently. Eliza pulled back the blanket to reveal a red, wrinkled face, eyes squeezed shut, tiny fists waving. The baby had a shock of dark hair, and as they watched, he opened his eyes, revealing blue irises that might darken or might stay the same. "He is perfect," Cole breathed. "You are amazing. Eliza, you are incredible." "We made him together," Eliza said. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy, but had never quite settled on one. Now, looking at his son, Cole knew. "Thomas," he said, "after your father, if that is all right with you." Eliza's eyes filled with tears. "Thomas Cole Mackenzie, I love it." When they brought the baby downstairs to meet his grandfather, the older man wept openly. "You have honored me," he said, his voice breaking. "Your mother would be so proud of you, Eliza, so very proud." Hannah could not stop smiling, holding her nephew with practiced ease. "He is going to be spoiled rotten," she declared. "Between all of us, this boy will never want for love." The early months of parenthood were exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. Little Thomas was a good baby, healthy and strong, but he still needed constant care. Eliza and Cole took turns with night feedings, walking the floors when he was fussy, marveling at every tiny change in development. Cole was a natural father, patient and tender with his son. Eliza would often find him in the nursery, just watching the baby sleep, a look of wonder on his face. He sang to Thomas, though he claimed he could not carry a tune, and told him stories about the ranch, about his grandparents, about the wild, beautiful land they called home. As Thomas grew from infant to toddler, he showed signs of being a perfect blend of his parents. He had Cole's dark hair and strong features, Eliza's hazel eyes, and determination. He was walking by 10 months, and by 18 months he could already sit a horse with his father's help, squealing with delight. Thomas Montgomery Sr.'s health began to fail when his namesake was 2 years old. He had lived to see his grandson, to know that the Montgomery line would continue, and he seemed content. One morning in spring, he simply did not wake up. He died peacefully in his sleep, which was all anyone could ask for. They buried him on a hill overlooking the valley, near where Eliza's mother was buried. The whole community turned out for the funeral, testament to the respect Thomas had earned over his years in the territory. Eliza grieved deeply, but she also felt grateful. Her father had lived long enough to know peace and happiness, to be surrounded by family, to hold his grandson. "He was so proud of you," Cole told her as they stood by the grave after everyone else had left. "He told me once that you were the best thing he ever did." "He was the best father I could have asked for," Eliza said, wiping tears from her cheeks. "He taught me everything, loved me unconditionally. I hope I can be half as good a parent to our son." "You already are," Cole assured her, pulling her close. Life continued its rhythm. The ranch prospered under their joint management. They expanded their herd, improved their breeding stock, built new barns and corrals. Cole's reputation as a fair dealer spread, and buyers came from across the territory to purchase Mackenzie cattle. When young Thomas was 4 years old, Eliza discovered she was pregnant again. This pregnancy was easier than the first, and when her time came, she delivered a daughter with far less difficulty. They named her Charlotte after Cole's mother, with Hannah as her middle name. Charlotte was a beautiful baby with dark curls and her father's blue eyes. If Thomas had been a blend of his parents, Charlotte seemed to be entirely her own person from the start. She was quieter than her brother had been, more observant, watching everything with solemn eyes. Hannah adored both children, but bonded especially with Charlotte. "She is going to be formidable," Hannah predicted, holding the baby. "Look at that expression. She is already plotting." The children grew up surrounded by love and the wild beauty of the Arizona territory. Thomas learned to ride almost before he could walk properly, following his father everywhere with complete devotion. Charlotte was more interested in the business side of ranching, sitting in on conversations between Eliza and Hannah, asking precocious questions about prices and markets. When Thomas was 7 and Charlotte was 3, Eliza gave birth to twin boys Benjamin and Samuel. The pregnancy had been difficult, and the birth even more so, but both babies were healthy. Cole, watching Eliza recover, made a decision. "No more," he said gently. "I am grateful for our children, but I will not risk you again. 4 is a blessing. 4 is enough." Eliza, exhausted and overwhelmed with 2 newborns in addition to their older children, agreed. Their family felt complete. The years passed in a blur of activity. The children grew, the ranch prospered, and Eliza and Cole's love only deepened. They faced challenges together, droughts and harsh winters, the occasional cattle thief, the normal struggles of raising 4 strong-willed children, but they faced them as partners always. Thomas Jr. proved to have a natural talent for working cattle and managing men. By the time he was 15, he was essentially running the day-to-day operations of the ranch alongside his father. Charlotte had inherited her Aunt Hannah's business acumen and spent hours poring over ledgers and contracts. The twins, Benjamin and Samuel, were inseparable and shared a love of horses that surpassed even their parents' passion. Hannah never remarried, claiming she was too set in her ways and too busy with the ranch. But she had a full life, surrounded by family, respected in the community. She taught Charlotte everything she knew about business, and the 2 of them began exploring new ventures, diversifying the ranch's income. As they entered their 40s, Cole and Eliza would sometimes ride out to the canyon where they first met, sitting on the rim and looking out over the vast landscape. The Arizona territory was changing, becoming more civilized with each passing year. The railroad had reached Prescott, bringing new opportunities and new challenges. "Do you ever regret it?" Cole asked during one of those rides, "marrying me all those years ago? We barely knew each other." Eliza looked at him, at the man who had been her partner for over 2 decades, and smiled. "Not for a single moment. You said once that your father told you that when you meet the right person, you will know. He was right. I knew in that canyon, even though I tried to tell myself I was being foolish. But I knew." "I knew too," Cole said. "The moment I saw you with my cattle, dusty and determined and absolutely remarkable, I knew my life had just changed forever." They kissed, their love as strong as it had been in those early days, but deeper now, enriched by years of partnership and parenthood, struggle and success. Thomas Jr. married at 23, bringing home a spirited young woman named Sarah who fit into the family as if she had always been there. They built a house on Mackenzie land and started their own herd, though they worked closely with the main ranch. Within 2 years, they made Cole and Eliza grandparents, a baby girl named Emma who had Eliza's hazel eyes. Charlotte, at 19, announced she had no intention of marrying anytime soon. "I have too much work to do," she declared. "Maybe someday, but not now." Hannah supported her completely, and Eliza and Cole learned to accept their daughter's independent spirit. The twins, at 15, were still too young to think about such things, focused entirely on training horses and perfecting their riding skills. On their 25th wedding anniversary, Cole organized a celebration at the ranch. Friends and neighbors came from miles around. Thomas and Sarah were there with Emma and their new baby, a son named James. The twins had organized horse races for the younger guests. Charlotte had arranged the food and decorations with military precision. As the sun set and the party continued, Cole found Eliza standing apart from the crowd, looking out over the ranch. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I am thinking about that day in the canyon," Eliza said. "How I found your cattle, and you told me to stay. How one moment, one decision can change everything." "Best decision I ever made," Cole said. "Asking you to stay. asking you to marry me, every choice that led me to you? I was thinking the same thing. Eliza turned in his arms to face him. We have built something remarkable here, Cole. Not just the ranch, but our family, our life. I am so grateful. So am I. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips. I love you, Eliza Mackenzie. I have loved you for 25 years, and I will love you for 25 more, and beyond that if I can manage it. I love you too, Eliza whispered. My cowboy, my partner, my heart. They stood together as the stars came out, surrounded by the evidence of their love, the family and community they had built. The Wild West was fading, becoming history, but their story would endure, passed down through generations. Thomas Jr. would eventually take over the ranch entirely, expanding it further with Sarah's help. Emma would grow up to be a doctor, one of the first women doctors in the state, inspired by her grandmother's strength and determination. Charlotte would never marry, but would build a business empire that made the Mackenzie name known throughout the Southwest. The twins would become renowned horse breeders, their stock sought after across the country. But that was all in the future. For now, Cole and Eliza stood together under the Arizona stars, holding each other close, surrounded by love and the vast, beautiful land they called home. They had built their happily ever after from dust and determination, from a chance meeting in a canyon and a simple statement that changed everything. That was remarkable. Stay here. Those words had been the beginning of their story, the moment two lonely souls found each other in the wilderness. And from that moment had grown a love that would last a lifetime, a family that would thrive, a legacy that would endure. As Cole and Eliza walked back to join their celebration, hand in hand as they had been for 25 years, they knew that their story was far from over. There would be more challenges, more joys, more years to share. But they would face it all together, partners in every sense, bound by a love that had started in a canyon and grown to fill their entire world. The children called to them, and they went to join the party, their hearts full of gratitude for the remarkable journey that had begun with lost cattle, a determined woman, and a cowboy who recognized something extraordinary when he saw it. Their love story had become the foundation for generations to come, a testament to the power of taking chances, staying open to possibility, and recognizing that sometimes the most remarkable things happen when we least expect them. Years continued to unfold with the steady rhythm of ranch life. Cole and Eliza, now in their 50s, had settled into a comfortable partnership that only deepened with time. Their hair showed silver strands. Their hands bore the calluses and scars of decades of hard work, but their love remained as vibrant as ever. Thomas Jr. and Sarah had given them 3 more grandchildren by the time they celebrated their 30th anniversary. The Mackenzie Ranch now sprawled across thousands of acres, one of the most successful operations in what had become the state of Arizona. The territory had achieved statehood, though not in Cole and Eliza's lifetime, but they watched the changes with interest and adapted as needed. Charlotte, true to her word, had remained unmarried, but at 24 she met a quiet lawyer named Daniel Peterson in Prescott. He was nothing like the boisterous cowboys and ranchers she had grown up around, and perhaps that was why he caught her attention. He respected her independence, her sharp mind, her dedication to the family business. After a courtship that lasted 2 years, Charlotte announced she would be getting married after all. "I thought you were too busy," Eliza teased gently. "I was," Charlotte said with a smile. "Yes. But then I met someone who makes me want to make time, who understands that I will never be content just keeping house. Daniel wants a partner, not a decoration." "Then he is the right man for you," Cole said, embracing his daughter. "Your grandfather Montgomery would have liked him, and your grandmother Charlotte, for whom you were named, would have been proud of you." The twins, Benjamin and Samuel, had indeed become renowned horse breeders. At 18, they had taken a trip to California to study breeding techniques and returned with ideas that revolutionized the Mackenzie operation. The horses they raised became legendary for their stamina, intelligence, and beauty. Hannah, now in her late 50s, had finally allowed herself to slow down slightly. She still kept her hand in the business, still offered advice and guidance, but she spent more time reading, gardening, and spoiling her nieces and nephews. She had become the matriarch of the family, respected and beloved by all. "I never thought I would be content," Hannah confessed to Eliza one afternoon as they sat on the porch watching Emma and her siblings play. "After my marriage failed, I thought I had lost my chance at happiness. But this family, this life we have built together, it is more than I ever dreamed possible." "You have been essential to all of it," Eliza said warmly. "Cole and I could never have built what we did without you. You are not just his sister, you are my sister too, in every way that matters." Hannah squeezed her hand. Too moved to speak. As Cole and Eliza moved into their 60s, they gradually handed over more responsibilities to the younger generation. Thomas Jr. was more than capable of running the ranch, with Charlotte handling the business side and the twins managing the horse breeding operation. It was a family enterprise in the truest sense, multiple generations working together toward common goals. Cole and Eliza spent more time simply enjoying each other's company. They took long rides into the canyons, revisiting the places that held meaning for them. They traveled to San Francisco once, a journey that took weeks but showed them a different world from the one they knew. But they were always glad to come home to Arizona, to the ranch, to the land they loved. "Do you remember what you said to me that first day?" Eliza asked Cole during one of their rides. They were in Cedar Canyon, near the spot where she had found his cattle all those years ago. "You said I should stay. Did you know even then?" "I knew you were special," Cole said. "I knew I did not want you to disappear from my life. Beyond that, I was flying on instinct, best instinct I ever followed." "I almost said no," Eliza admitted. "I almost rode away and never looked back. Can you imagine? We might have lived our whole lives without ever seeing each other again." "I do not want to imagine it," Cole said firmly. "We found each other, and that is what matters. Everything else followed from that moment." They were 71 and 69 respectively when Cole fell ill. It started as a persistent cough that would not go away, then weakness, then finally the doctor's grim diagnosis. His lungs were failing, probably from decades of breathing in dust and smoke, and there was nothing to be done. Eliza refused to accept it at first, insisting there must be treatments, specialists, something. But Cole took her hands in his, looked into her eyes, and spoke with quiet certainty. "My love, we have had 47 years together. 47 incredible years. We have children, grandchildren, a legacy that will continue long after we are gone. I have lived a full life, a happy life, and it was all because you found my cattle in that canyon and agreed to stay." "I cannot lose you," Eliza whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You will never lose me. I will be with you always, in every sunrise over the canyon, in every calf born on this ranch, in the eyes of our grandchildren. And eventually, when your time comes, I will be waiting for you, I promise." Cole lived for 6 more months, growing weaker but never losing his spirit. The family gathered around him, children and grandchildren filling the house with life and love. He told stories, offered advice, made sure everyone knew how much they meant to him. On a warm October evening, with Eliza holding his hand and Hannah on his other side, Cole Mackenzie passed peacefully. His last words were, "It was all worth it. Every moment." They buried him on the hill next to Thomas Montgomery, overlooking the ranch he had built and the land he had loved. The funeral was enormous, people coming from across the state to pay their respects to a man who had been respected and admired by all who knew him. Eliza stood at the graveside, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, and felt the weight of grief settle over her. But she also felt gratitude. They had been given something precious, something many people never found. They had been true partners, true friends, true lovers for nearly half a century. She lived for 7 more years without him, years filled with the love of her family but marked by a profound loneliness. Cole had been her other half, and without him she felt incomplete. But she kept his memory alive, telling stories to her grandchildren and great-grandchildren about the remarkable cowboy who had asked her to stay. On a spring morning with wildflowers blooming across the ranch, Eliza did not wake up. She died in her sleep, a peaceful passing that her children knew she would have wanted. They buried her next to Cole, reuniting them at last. The Mackenzie Ranch continued to thrive, managed by Thomas Jr. until he was ready to pass it to his own children. Charlotte's business empire grew, and she eventually wrote a book about her experiences as a businesswoman in the Old West that became a bestseller. The twins' horses were celebrated throughout the country, winning races and setting breeding standards. But more important than any material success was the love that had started it all. Cole and Eliza's children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren carried forward the lessons they had learned from watching two people build a life together based on mutual respect, genuine partnership, and enduring love. The story of how Eliza Montgomery found Cole Mackenzie's lost cattle in Cedar Canyon and how he asked her to stay became family legend, told and retold at gatherings and celebrations. It became the foundation story of the Mackenzie family, the moment when everything changed. And on quiet evenings when the Arizona sun set over the Red Canyon walls and the stars came out to paint the sky, it was easy to imagine two spirits riding together through the landscape they had loved, bound together for eternity by a love that had started with a simple statement and grown to encompass everything. That was remarkable. Stay here. Those words had changed two lives, created a family, built a legacy. They had proven that sometimes the most important moments in life come when we least expect them, that love can grow from the most unlikely circumstances, and that when two people commit to facing life as partners, there is nothing they cannot overcome. The Wild West faded into history, but the love story of Eliza and Cole Mackenzie lived on, a testament to the power of courage, determination, and an open heart. They had found each other in a canyon, built a life in the wilderness, and created something that would endure long after they were gone. Their happily ever after had not been perfect or easy. It had been filled with challenges and hardships, losses and struggles, but it had also been filled with joy and laughter, with children and grandchildren, with the satisfaction of building something meaningful together. And in the end, that was what mattered most. They had lived, they had loved, and they had left the world better than they found it. And somewhere beyond the sunset, they rode together still, two souls who had recognized each other in a moment of chance and had chosen to stay, to build, to love, forever and always.